Her truck broke down again, miles from home, low on fuel and out of options. But when a quiet diner chef wiped his hands on a towel and asked to check under the hood, Sarah had no idea he was about to uncover a secret that could expose a statewide scheme. What was really happening to her truck? Sabotage or something worse? The highway stretched out like a scar through the open plains, cracked and sun-bleached. Sarah kept both hands firm on the wheel of her worn Kenworth W900, her knuckles white from strain. The radio crackled, but she didn't bother changing the station. She was focused, tight deadline, high stakes, one last delivery before the fuel card maxed out. Then it happened again. The engine gave a short cough, sputtered, and the dashboard lights flared red like an alarm in a war zone. Sarah cursed under her breath, easing the truck onto the shoulder as smoke hissed from under the hood. "Not now," she muttered. "Come on, girl. Don't do this again." She popped the door and climbed out, boots crunching against gravel. The heat was brutal, thick enough to make her fatigues cling to her back, and the air smelled of oil and ozone. Lifting the hood, she stared into the steaming guts of the engine with frustration, but no answers. She'd already sunk most of her savings into repairs, sensors, wires, a full diagnostic last month, and yet the problems kept coming back, like clockwork. Misfires, stalls, strange electrical glitches. No mechanic could give her a straight answer. And now here she was, 30 miles from the nearest town, with a deadline she'd never meet. Looking down the road, she saw a flickering neon sign on the horizon. Miller's Diner Homestyle Meals since '54. She sighed and climbed back into the cab. Maybe she couldn't fix the truck today, but at least she could get some coffee and a moment to think. The diner sat alone beside an abandoned gas station, sun-faded and tired, but still open. Inside, the cool air smelled of bacon grease and fresh pie. A few regulars sat at the counter, and a waitress in a green-trimmed uniform offered a tired smile as Sarah took a seat in a corner booth. She looked around, linoleum floor, old photos on the walls, a flag folded in a frame above the register. Felt familiar, safe almost. From behind the counter, a man emerged from the kitchen, tall, quiet, mid-40s, with a calm presence. His arms were inked with faded military tattoos, partially hidden beneath his rolled-up sleeves. His name tag read, Victor. He brought her coffee without being asked. "Long haul," Sarah nodded. "Longer than I planned." Rig gave up again. Victor looked out the window toward the highway. "That the W900 out front? Beautiful machine. Or, used to be." She smirked. "Still is when it wants to be." Then, hesitating, she added, "Been giving me trouble for months. Electrical stuff. Wires shorting, sensors blowing. No one can tell me why." Victor leaned on the counter, thoughtful. "Mind if I take a look after your coffee? Spent 15 years patching up worse than trucks." She narrowed her eyes slightly, measuring him. "Army. 18 years. Maintenance. Tanks, drones, you name it." Sarah hesitated for a beat, then nodded. "All right, can't hurt." After finishing her coffee and a surprisingly good plate of eggs, Sarah led Victor out to the lot. He pulled a rag from his apron pocket and wiped his hands like he was changing gears in his mind, from cook to soldier. With practiced ease, he propped the hood and examined the engine. A few minutes in, he stopped. "This wasn't wear and tear," he said quietly. "Look here." He pointed to a cluster of wires near the firewall. The casing had been stripped clean, too clean. "That doesn't happen naturally," he muttered. "And this module, it's been loosened manually. Someone's been inside this." Sarah blinked. "You're saying someone sabotaged my truck?" He nodded grimly. "Looks that way." The hair on Sarah's arms stood on end. Her mind raced. Who would do this? Why? She scanned the parking lot. A black pickup truck was pulling away slowly, like it had been sitting there a while. Through the diner window, she caught a glimpse of a man at the counter putting down a 20 and slipping out the back door, phone still in hand. Victor followed her gaze. "You know him?" Sarah shook her head. "Never seen him before." Victor narrowed his eyes, thoughtful. "He saw me under the hood. Didn't like it. Silence fell between them as the wind rustled a tumbleweed across the lot. Sarah's voice was low. I thought I was just unlucky. Bad mechanics. Cheap parts. But if someone's actually targeting me… Victor looked her in the eye. Then we're not talking about a broken truck. We're talking about a pattern. And patterns leave trails. Sarah nodded slowly. Then let's follow it. The light on the diner sign illuminated the pavement. Somewhere, someone was watching. And they had just realized Sarah wasn't alone anymore. Victor almost didn't sleep that night. After closing the diner, he sat alone in the kitchen, the hum of the walk-in freezer the only sound breaking the stillness. His elbows rested on the prep table, grease-stained rag in one hand, the other holding a photo, for soldiers in dusty uniforms, all grinning in front of a camouflaged Humvee. One of them was him, 20 pounds lighter and far less tired. The man beside him, arms slung over his shoulder, was Rico Navarro. Last time I trusted a parts supplier without questions, Victor muttered to himself. We lost 3 drones and a month's worth of recon. He set the photo down. The look on Sarah's face when he'd pointed out the tampered wires stuck with him. Frustration, yes, but underneath it, fear. Not the kind you show in a firefight, but the kind that creeps in when you realize you've been under attack without even knowing it. And Victor recognized something else too. The sabotage wasn't just sloppy maintenance. It was targeted, professional, purposeful. The next morning, the diner opened like clockwork. Locals shuffled in for eggs and coffee, and Victor worked the line like any other day, but his eyes were sharper now. He watched the trucks that pulled in, listened more carefully to conversations. Around 10, he leaned over the counter to Sarah, who'd returned to nurse another cup of coffee while waiting on a tow. You said you replaced the ECU last month? He asked quietly. Yeah, she replied. Some warehouse off Route 16. Guy said he specialized in heavy-duty rigs. Name was Traven, I think. Victor's expression darkened. I've heard that name. She raised an eyebrow. Yeah. Let me check something. He disappeared into the back, pulled out an old, dust-covered Rolodex from the office shelf, something the owner hadn't touched in years, and flipped through the cards. His fingers stopped at one labeled Rico N. Ridgeview Auto and Diesel. Scribbled below, still paranoid, still brilliant. Victor smiled to himself. Then he grabbed his phone. Rico answered on the second ring. Vic. The voice on the other end was gruff, wary. Hey brother. Long time. Too long. What's up? I've got a rig here, W900. Truck keeps dying. Looks like sabotage. Owner bought parts from someplace near Route 16. Ring any bells? Rico was silent for a moment. Then, Traven's warehouse. Thought so. They've been moving volume through the area. Real slick operation. Cheap parts just shady enough to avoid headlines. I've had 3 vets come in this month with similar stories, bad parts, sudden failures. All bought from Traven. You got proof. I've got busted components and bad paperwork, but nothing that'll stick. Not yet. Why? You got something. Victor looked out the diner window at Sarah, staring at her truck like it might bite her. I might, he said. And she's ready to fight. Meanwhile, Sarah wasn't sitting still. With her delivery compromised, she had to restock supplies before dusk or risk losing the contract altogether. A friendly tow truck driver from town offered her a lift to a nearby distribution point, and she jumped at the chance. But something about the ride felt off. She caught the reflection in the side mirror first. A dark SUV, several car lengths behind, maintaining perfect distance through every turn. At first, she brushed it off as coincidence, but by the third detour, it was still there. She glanced at the driver. You seeing that SUV? He nodded slowly. Been there for a while. Sarah's instincts flared. Can you drop me early? I'll take the rest on foot. He didn't ask questions, just gave a short nod and pulled off onto a gravel turnoff behind an abandoned barn. Sarah jumped out and crouched behind the structure, watching as the SUV cruised slowly past, not slowing, not stopping, but not speeding up either. She stayed hidden until the coast was clear, then took a long breath. Someone was watching her. That much was clear. And whoever it was, they didn't want her digging deeper. Back at the diner, Victor returned to Sarah's booth, phone in hand. "Just got off with a buddy," he said. "Rico Navarro. We served together. He runs a diesel shop near here and he's been seeing the same pattern. Vets getting bad parts from the same place." Sarah leaned in, her face hardening. "So this isn't just me." "No. And it's not just your truck. Someone's been targeting vehicles driven by veterans. Rico thinks they're using old army surplus, stuff that should have been scrapped. Some of it's rigged to fail." Sarah sat back, jaw tight. "Why vets?" Victor shook his head. "Maybe because we don't ask questions. We fix it, move on. We blame ourselves. But someone's using that against us." She looked out the window again, this time with purpose. "Then they picked the wrong soldier." Victor gave a dry smile. "I was hoping you'd say that." That night, Victor drove out to Rico's shop under the cover of darkness. They popped open a few parts together. ECUs with fried circuits, alternators filled with mismatched wires, and even brake pads that looked shaved down intentionally. Sloppy work hiding behind official packaging. Victor took photos, cataloged everything, and left with a USB drive filled with Rico's notes and diagnostics. "Be careful," Rico warned. "Traven's not just some scam artist. Word is he used to be in procurement for the army. Knows how to cover his tracks. He's got friends." Victor nodded. "So do I." The next morning, Sarah returned from her supply run with more than groceries. She came back with a license plate number. "That SUV that followed me? I got the digits." Victor's eyes lit up. "Then we've got something real." He poured coffee into 2 mugs, slid one to her, and raised his in a quiet toast. "To fighting smart." Sarah raised hers in reply. "And not alone." The warehouse looked harmless from the outside. A squat concrete building nestled behind a chain-link fence, surrounded by stacks of rusted axles and pallets of shrink-wrapped parts. The name on the gate, Transcore Logistics, might have sounded official to someone passing by, but Sarah recognized it immediately. "Colonel Braxton," she muttered, arms folded. "I'd know that name anywhere." Victor glanced at her, one eyebrow raised. "You served under him?" "Worse. He ran our supply line during my last tour. Always had excuses. Always losing things in shipping. A new set of comms would show up with missing cables, engines with the wrong specs. Soldiers started calling his warehouses ghost yards, places where good gear went to die." Victor nodded slowly. "And now he's selling scrap dressed up as salvation." They sat in Rico's pickup just off the main road, binoculars in Victor's hands. "Third delivery truck today," he said. "No branding. Just a driver in a hoodie, in and out in 5. Sarah tapped her fingers against the dashboard. "We need something real. Testimony isn't enough. We need their voices." Victor turned, eyes sharp. "Then let's plant a mic." That night, Rico brought out a dusty metal case from under his workbench. "Had this baby since we were stationed in Kandahar," he said, popping the lid. Inside, a micro-recorder wired into what looked like a fuse box relay. 10 hours of clear audio. Voice activated. Pull the tab, plant it near a desk or phone line, and it'll do the rest. Sarah tested the weight. "Still works. Only one way to find out." Rico grinned. The plan was simple. Sarah would pose as a driver in need of a bulk order. Victor would pretend to be her silent partner managing logistics. They'd request a private meeting in the back office to talk numbers. And while the officer was distracted, Victor would slip the mic behind the filing cabinet or under the desk. The hard part? Keeping calm when face-to-face with the man who nearly got her killed overseas. The next morning, they rolled up to the warehouse in Victor's rebuilt flatbed. Sarah stepped out in scuffed boots and a worn cap, masking her rage behind a polite smirk. She walked in confidently, clipboard in hand. "Looking for someone who knows how to move 10 ECUs without paperwork," she said. The receptionist, a thin woman with icy eyes, didn't blink. "We don't do bulk without appointment." Sarah lowered her voice. "Tell Braxton that Sergeant Hale says hi." A pause. Then the woman picked up the phone. "Colonel." Now Mr. Braxton hadn't changed much. His hair was shorter, his uniform replaced by a leather vest and pressed shirt. But the cold calculation in his eyes was the same. "Sergeant Hale," he said with mock delight. "Still barking orders?" Sarah smiled tightly. "Still fixing the messes you leave behind." Braxton motioned them into the office. The space was sterile. Metal shelves, 2 monitors, a cheap desk with neatly arranged pens. As they negotiated, Victor excused himself to the adjoining storeroom, checking labels. In seconds, the mic was slipped behind a desk leg. Braxton chuckled as Sarah played along with the deal. "We offer our veteran clients flexibility," he said, "and in return, they trust us to keep them moving. That's the business." Sarah nodded. "And what happens when the parts fail?" Braxton leaned back. "Then they come back for more. Win-win." They left without incident. 2 hours later, the recorder was retrieved. Victor, covered in grease, pretended to pick up a misdelivered alternator and palmed the device from beneath the desk. What they heard in Rico's garage that night made Sarah's hands shake. Braxton, speaking casually to another man, "You keep telling him it's surplus from military lots. They'll eat it up. They don't ask questions. They're broke, they're proud, and they need to drive. Even the damaged ones? Especially those. Half the time we've already billed the government under the Veteran Repair Fund. Double dipping. Easy." The man laughed. "You're a cold one, sir. Call it efficient. This country left us behind. I'm just collecting what I'm owed." Then, a noise, a chair scraping. The same man again, but this time agitated. One of the drivers noticed the solder marks on the PCM board, started asking questions. Braxton's voice dropped. "Then handle it. Quietly." Later that night, back at the diner, Sarah poured herself a glass of water and stared at the walls, now heavy with silence. Victor scrubbed the grill but kept glancing toward the windows. "Think we've got enough to bring someone in?" he asked. "Not yet," she murmured. "We need that audio in the hands of someone clean. Someone outside local law enforcement." "Why?" he asked. Sarah leaned forward. "Because that SUV from before? It was parked across the street from my motel tonight. Lights off, just sitting there." Victor paused. "You think Braxton has friends in town?" "I think Braxton owns half this town. They didn't have to wait long for retaliation." The next morning, Rico's shop had its locks cut and shelves overturned. Nothing stolen, just chaos. Victor's tires were slashed behind the diner. Sarah's CB radio buzzed with silence when she tried to call local dispatch. Then came the fire. It started with a hiss behind the diner. Someone cracked the gas line near the back door and tossed a flare. Victor, sleeping in the storeroom that night, caught the scent first. He grabbed the extinguisher and kicked open the back door just in time to see 2 figures sprinting into the trees. He killed the fire, coughing through the smoke. Sarah arrived minutes later, shotgun across her chest. "You okay?" Victor nodded, eyes red. "They're done playing subtle." Sarah looked at the scorched doorframe, then out at the road disappearing into darkness. "Then neither are we." By sunrise, word had already begun to spread. The attempted arson at the diner, combined with rumors about faulty truck parts and a shady warehouse operation, ignited something deep in the hearts of the local drivers. Most of them had been burned before. Broken brakes, faulty sensors, mysterious breakdowns that left them stranded far from home. And now they knew it wasn't bad luck. It was betrayal. Sarah stood in the diner parking lot, addressing a dozen drivers as the morning light painted their dusty trucks gold. "They think we're easy targets," she said, voice firm. "They sell us garbage and expect us to shut up and drive. But not anymore." Victor stood beside her, arms crossed. "We've got the audio. We've got names. But we need more voices. We need you." One by one, hands went up. Rico opened the garage that day not for repairs, but for testimonies. Drivers stepped in, some limping from old war wounds, others with grease still on their sleeves, telling their stories to Victor's small recorder. Missed deliveries, lost contracts, crashes that never made sense until now. And then came Logan. He was young, no more than 28. Fresh face, prosthetic arm. Quiet until Sarah offered him a coffee and sat with him near the counter. "I used to work there," he said, eyes low. "Braxton gave me a job unloading pallets. Said he took care of his own. But I started noticing things. Parts getting boxed up even when they were clearly busted. One day I asked about it. Next morning I was let go." Victor sat forward. "Did you see him tampering with anything?" Logan hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "I recorded something once. I was afraid to release it without having more material after all these guys are very powerful around here. But now I think you should see it." He tapped play. The screen lit up with a grainy video taken behind a shelf in the warehouse office. Braxton sat with two men, feet on the desk, chuckling. "You know what I call this place?" he said. "A recycling center. We take trash and sell it back to heroes. Poetic, right?" Laughter. "Most of them don't even complain. They're too proud, too damn tired. And if one of them crashes, well, that's on them, isn't it?" Sarah's jaw clenched. Victor looked sick. With the audio, the testimonies, and Logan's video, they had enough to move beyond local police. They reached out to federal investigators, sending the evidence through encrypted channels. Within 48 hours, 2 unmarked black SUVs arrived in town. Agents sat with Sarah and Victor in the diner booth as hot coffee steamed between them. "This is more than sabotage," one agent said. "It's federal fraud, endangerment, and exploitation of veteran subsidies." By week's end, Colonel Braxton, now Mr. Braxton, was arrested at the warehouse, along with his top lieutenants. The facility was shut down, and government funding traced back through years of illegal claims was frozen for audit. The day of the arrests, Sarah parked her truck, newly repaired, at the crossroads outside the warehouse. Dozens of other rigs lined the dirt road, engines off, drivers watching silently as agents led the men out in cuffs. Nobody honked, nobody cheered, but they stood, together. In the weeks that followed, Sarah became a voice far beyond that highway. She was invited to speak at town halls, veteran rallies, and trucking conferences across the state. Her words were simple but powerful. "If we don't stand up for each other, no one will." She pushed for transparency in part suppliers, for regulation that would protect independent drivers, especially veterans, and for a reporting network that would let drivers flag shady repairs and suppliers. And Victor? He took the insurance money from the fire damage, added every last dollar he'd saved, and transformed the diner into more than just a stop for eggs and coffee. He built a veteran support center right there in the back room. There were cots for those passing through, free meals for any vet who walked in, and a board on the wall with job postings, repair discounts, and messages from old Army buddies trying to reconnect. They called it the Forward Post. Under the new sign out front, a smaller one hung beneath, "Coffee's always hot. Doors never close, especially for those who served." Sarah, walking through the lot one afternoon, paused beside Logan's truck. It bore a fresh paint job, a new name stenciled across the door. "Logan Freight. No one left behind." He waved. She smiled. This story reminds us that justice often starts with a spark of courage and a community that refuses to stay silent. What would you have done if you discovered your own truck was being sabotaged for profit? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey for more powerful true-to-life tales. See you in a next video.